Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. This is the NFL DFS Core Pick video for Week 5. If you join me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going through my core picks on DraftKings and FanDuel. It will be one player at each position. I'll be talking through them a little bit as to why I like them this week overall. You don't necessarily have to play all 5 together, but these are 5 players that I do like in their respective matchups this week overall. And if you're looking for more advice beyond this, I will be sharing my NFL DFS cheat sheets down in the comment section of this video. You can also find them on the YouTube community tab, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and on the Sports Affiliation website. If you're interested in a larger player pool beyond that, definitely feel free to check out my Patreon page as well. Very small monthly donation over there. But without further ado, we're going to get right into the core picks. We're going to start off on the DraftKings side with the quarterback position. And we're going to go with Justin Fields here. He is currently averaging just under 21 fantasy points per game. He's at $5,600. And he goes against the Dallas Cowboys, who have been the worst defense overall in the league and have allowed a lot of great fantasy performances for quarterbacks so far this season. So definitely do like the upside of Justin Fields. Obviously, he does have that rushing upside. Plus, going against the Dallas Cowboys. So with that being said, all cards point to a really good performance for him this week overall. Then we're going to move down to the running back position. A lot of good value at that running back position this week, whether it's attractive matchups, attractive price tags, backups filling in that are going to be getting large workloads. And with that being said, we're going to get to one of those running backs in Rachaad White. He's at $4,700, currently averaging 7 fantasy points per game, which is not a bad point total in its own right when you consider that he has kind of been the second string guy behind Bucky Irving so far this season. Bucky Irving is out for this game. Matchup versus Seattle Seahawks, kind of a hit or miss matchup there, but definitely do like the upside of Rachaad White being that primary back for them this week. Sean Tucker will mix in just a little bit at the same time as well, but definitely do like the upside of Rachaad White, who it will be the pass catching back at the same time as well. $4,700, just too good of a price tag to ignore at this point in time. And then we move down to wide receiver. We're going to go with Garrett Wilson. He's at $6,100, currently averaging 19 fantasy points per game. He's had a really strong start to the season. Obviously, if we have Justin Fields in our lineup, we're probably going to want one of his receiving options, and Garrett Wilson is by far the best one. Everybody else on the team really hasn't done too much in that receiving department. So Garrett Wilson, kind of that target hog, guy with a ton of upside and a great matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. All signs point up for him at the same time as well. And then we're going to move down to tight end. We're going to go with Darren Waller, who did make his season debut for the Miami Dolphins last week. He didn't play a ton of plays, but he did score 2 touchdowns. He goes into Carolina this week. A very attractive matchup there. The Carolina Panthers have struggled mightily against the tight end so far on this young season. Darren Waller, it's one game, currently averaging just under 18 fantasy points per game at $3,500. I don't expect that pace to continue, but in this matchup, it looks like a really good value option at that tight end position for this week overall. And there are a lot of attractive matchups for tight ends just in general this week, so definitely feel free to mix and match at that position. And then last but not least, we're going down to defense. Not a ton of defenses that I do love this week. I think I have 6 in total on my player pool, but I went all the way down with the Houston Texans there at $2,400, going against the backup quarterback in Cooper Rush. If they can get some pressure on him, cause some turnovers, and stop that run game of Derrick Henry, could be a good and attractive matchup for them overall. Once again, they're at $2,400, currently averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. And if we can get even 8 points out of them this week, it's going to look like a really good paydown option. I would expect them to be a pretty popular defense this week overall, though. But with that being said, if you were to go with the 5 players that I do have currently listed here, you'll have $27,700 remaining. Just under $7,000 remaining per player. So I definitely do like this as a good baseline. We're paying down in a lot of different spots, which would allow us to pay up at some other spots at the same time as well. But with that being said, we'll give it over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So on the FanDuel side, I'm going to go with the opposite end of that Jets and Cowboys game at quarterback with Dak Prescott. He's at $7,300. Really good price tag over on FanDuel. Currently averaging just under 20.5 fantasy points per game. The Jets have not been the greatest on defense, especially against opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. I would expect this to be a very high-scoring game, so it definitely does favor both quarterbacks, whether that's Justin Fields or Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is the one with the better price tag on FanDuel. Justin Fields is the one with the better price tag on DraftKings. So definitely feel free to mix and match between those two quarterbacks on both sides, but definitely do like the upside of both them just in general. Then we move down to running back. We got Rachaad White once again. He's at $5,200 on the FanDuel side, currently averaging 6 fantasy points per game. Obviously, you only get half a point per reception on the FanDuel side as opposed to the full point over on DraftKings. But definitely do like Rachaad White in this matchup overall. Kind of the middle pack defense going against the Seattle Seahawks. But he should be the lead back for this matchup overall. Should get the carry, should get the pass catching work. Sean Tucker will mix in a little bit, but I would assume that Rachaad White is the primary guy once again. And then we move down to wide receivers. So I got Dak Prescott at quarterback. We're going down to George Pickens, $7,100. It's a relatively decent price tag for him overall. Currently averaging 17 fantasy points per game. I did see an interesting stat. I think it was earlier today. George Pickens already has 4 receiving touchdowns, which is more than his total last year where he had 3, and he's only played 4 games so far this season. So definitely do like him, especially without CeeDee Lamb. In this matchup versus the New York Jets, should be a pretty good one for him overall. And then when you move down to tight end, like I said, there are a lot of good, attractive matchups for tight ends overall this week. I'm kind of going with the pay down option on both sides. So on DraftKings, that ultimately ended up being Darren Waller. On FanDuel, it's going to be Zach Ertz. He's at $5,100, currently averaging just under 9 fantasy points per game. He does get Jaden Daniels back at quarterback this week, which should help him out just a little bit. Still very depleted in that wide receiver room with Terry McLaurin out once again. I think Noah Brown's out once again. Don't quote me on that at this point in time. I definitely do need to look a little bit more into that. But I like Zach Ertz in this matchup. Should be a decent matchup, kind of middle of pack so far for the Chargers this season versus tight ends. But I definitely do like the potential volume and upside of Zach Ertz just in general. And then last but not least, we're going down to that pay down defense with the Houston Texans. $3,600. They're also averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the FanDuel side. If we can get that out of them once again at $3,600, that is going to be a really good value for us overall. Obviously, going against Baltimore Ravens, Cooper Rush at quarterback this week with Lamar Jackson out should be a pretty attractive matchup just in general, especially if they are able to stuff their run and Derrick Henry just in general. Obviously, anytime Derrick Henry goes against the Texans, you get a little bit afraid, especially as a Texans fan myself, but definitely do like the upside of this defense at a really attractive price tag. But with that being said, if you do go with the 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you'll have $31,700 remaining, just over $7,900 remaining per player. So kind of like we had over on DraftKings, a lot of money remaining, a lot of different ways that we can pay up for the rest of our lineup. Should be pretty easy to build out your lineups this week, especially with the value that we do have at running back. But if you are trying to get a little bit different, feel free to leverage some of those other higher priced running backs in there at the same time as well. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both DraftKings and FanDuel. As always, if you have any questions related to NFL DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comment section below, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. And then once again, I will be leaving my NFL DFS cheat sheets for both DraftKings and FanDuel down in the comments section. You can also find them on the YouTube community tab, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Blue Sky, as well as the Sports Affiliation website. So definitely feel free to check that out. It's a very good free resource. And then if you're interested in a larger player pool beyond that, feel free to check out my Patreon page. Very small monthly donation over there. You get access to my NFL DFS player pools for a month. You get access to my CFL DFS sheets for a month, as well as my NFL snap count spreadsheets. So a lot of good different football resources if you're playing NFL and CFL DFS. But with that being said, if you're brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have my CFL DFS video coming out once a week, typically on Wednesdays, and then I do have my NFL DFS Core Pick video coming out once a week, and that will be either coming out on Friday or Saturday, and that's going to vary a little bit week to week, just kind of depending on my schedule, but definitely be on the lookout for all of those as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS and Prize Picks if you're a brand new user on either one of those sites. When you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks, it's 100% match up to $100, and then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,000. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comment section of this video or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for this week's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NFL DFS for Week 5.